He looked me in the eyes and said, "I can't marry you, not because I don't love you, but because you're black." I stood there, frozen, as my entire world shattered. But karma doesn't forget. And years later, when he came crawling back, begging on his knees, I made sure he felt every ounce of the pain he gave me. If you've ever been told you weren't enough because of who you are, this story is for you. Stay until the end. You won't believe what happens. And if you love stories about karma and justice, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. My name is Simone. I'm an architect. I design buildings that stand tall, structures that last for generations. Funny how I could design something so permanent, yet I couldn't see the cracks in my own foundation when it came to love. 3 years ago, I met him at a charity gala in Manhattan. Lennox, that was his name. Tall, sharp suit, confidence that filled the room before he even opened his mouth. He had this way of looking at you like you were the only person who mattered. And God, I fell for it. I fell hard. Our first conversation lasted 4 hours. We talked about everything: architecture, travel, dreams we hadn't told anyone else. He told me I was brilliant. He told me I was beautiful. He made me feel seen in ways I'd never experienced before. Within weeks, we were inseparable. He'd show up at my office with coffee, leave little notes on my drafting table, call me just to hear my voice. It felt like magic. It felt real. For 2.5 years, I built my life around him. I believed we were building something together. But looking back now, I can see the cracks I ignored. The way his mother would look at me during family dinners. Not with warmth, but with this cold, calculating stare, like she was assessing whether I belonged. The way Lennox never posted photos of us together on social media, even though his feed was full of every other part of his life. The way he'd tense up whenever we ran into his business associates at restaurants, introducing me quickly, casually, like I was just a friend. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself he loved me, and that was enough. Then he started talking about the future, about marriage, about building a life together. My heart soared. I started imagining the wedding, the home we'd create, the family we'd build. I thought this was it. I thought I'd found my person. He invited me to a formal dinner with his family at some exclusive restaurant on the Upper East Side. His mother, Greta, his father, his younger sister, all of them sitting around this long table, staring at me like I was a problem that needed solving. Greta smiled, but it never reached her eyes. She said things like, "You're so articulate, Simone, so well-spoken," and, "Lennox, dear, she's certainly different from the girls you usually date." Every word felt like a tiny knife. I looked at Lennox, waiting for him to say something, to defend me, to shut it down. But he just sat there, cutting his steak, pretending he didn't hear it. That night, driving home, I finally confronted him. I asked him why he didn't stand up for me. He sighed, rubbed his temples, and said I was overreacting. That his mother didn't mean anything by it, that I was being too sensitive. That's when the distance started. Phone calls became shorter. Texts took hours to return. And then I found it. A message on his phone from Greta. It said, "You know marrying her will destroy everything. Think of the investors. Think of the legacy." That's when I knew. My world was about to come crashing down. I stared at that text message until my hands started shaking. Marrying her will destroy everything. Like I was some kind of disease. Like loving me was a liability. I took a screenshot, sent it to myself, and put his phone back exactly where I found it. I didn't say anything that night. I needed to see if he'd tell me the truth on his own. I needed to see if the man I loved had any backbone at all. Days passed, then a week. He acted like everything was normal, but I could feel him pulling away. Every kiss felt hollow. Every "I love you" sounded rehearsed. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, searching for signs I'd missed, wondering if I'd been blind or just hopeful. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I showed up at his penthouse unannounced. He opened the door in his expensive loungewear, glass of whiskey in hand, and I could see it in his eyes. He knew why I was there. "We need to talk," I said, walking past him into that massive living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The same view that used to make me feel like we were on top of the world. Now it just felt cold. He closed the door slowly, and I could hear him take a deep breath, like he was preparing for battle. "Simone, it's late. Can this wait until—" I cut him off. "No, it can't wait." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot. His mother's text. His face went pale. "When were you going to tell me?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Tell you what?" he said, and I almost laughed at how pathetic that sounded. "Don't insult me, Lennox. When were you going to tell me that your family thinks I'm not good enough? That marrying me would destroy your precious reputation?" He set his glass down, ran his hand through his hair, and I watched him transform from the man I loved into a stranger. "It's complicated, Simone. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. My family, the business, the investors. They have certain expectations." "Expectations?" I repeated, feeling rage build in my chest. "Say it, Lennox. Say what you really mean. They don't want you to marry a black woman." The silence that followed was deafening. He looked at me, then looked away, and in that moment, I saw the truth. He was a coward. "I love you," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "I do. But my family, they've built this empire over generations. My father, his father before him. There are traditions, images we have to maintain. If I marry you, it could cost me everything. Investors will pull out. Business partners will distance themselves. I could lose the company." I felt something inside me snap. "So that's it? You're choosing money over me? You're choosing their racism over our love?" He stepped toward me, tried to reach for my hand, but I jerked away. "It's not about choosing. It's about being realistic. We can still be together, just not married, not publicly. We can keep—" I slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through that massive penthouse, and my palm stung, but not as much as my heart. "You disgust me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I was good enough to sleep with. Good enough to keep hidden away like your dirty little secret. But not good enough to marry. Not good enough to carry your name." His cheek was red where I'd hit him, and for a second, I thought I saw shame in his eyes. But then he just stood there, silent, and I realized he wasn't going to fight for me. He wasn't going to choose me. "Goodbye, Lennox," I said, grabbing my purse. I walked toward that door, and with every step, I felt pieces of myself breaking. He called my name once, but he didn't follow me, and that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't leave his building with dignity. I made it to the elevator, pressed the button for the lobby, and the second those doors closed, I collapsed. I'm talking full breakdown, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe, my back against the cold metal wall, mascara running down my face. When the doors opened on the ground floor, the doorman pretended not to notice. I'll always remember that small mercy. The next 3 months were the darkest of my life. I called in sick to work more times than I'm proud to admit. My apartment became a cave. Curtains drawn, lights off, just me and the silence and the crushing weight of rejection. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every conversation, wondering what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? My best friend, Tasha, practically broke down my door one day, took one look at me, and started crying herself. "Baby, you can't let him destroy you like this," she said, holding me while I fell apart for the 100th time. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It's solid. You can't fall any further. And once I realized I was still breathing, still here, still me, something shifted. I was angry, not just at Lennox, but at myself for letting someone else define my worth, for shrinking myself to fit into his world, for believing that his love was worth more than my dignity. That anger became fuel. I went back to work with a fire I'd never felt before. Every design, every project, every client meeting, I poured everything into it. I stopped trying to make myself smaller. I stopped apologizing for taking up space. 6 months after the breakup, I landed a pitch meeting with a development group in Dubai. They wanted someone visionary, someone bold. I gave them a presentation that made their jaws drop. They hired me on the spot for a $200 million project, my first international contract. I moved to Dubai for 8 months to oversee construction. The work was brutal, the hours insane, but I loved every second of it. I was building something real, something that would outlast any relationship, any heartbreak. When the building was completed, it made headlines. Architectural magazines featured it. Design blogs called it revolutionary. Suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. London wanted me. Tokyo wanted me. Paris wanted me. I went from being a good architect to being one of the most sought-after names in the industry. 2 years after Lennox broke my heart, I was on the cover of Architectural Digest. 2 years. I had a corner office in a firm I'd started myself, a team of 12 brilliant designers, and a client list that read like a Forbes ranking. I bought a penthouse, bigger than Lennox's, with my own money. I traveled first class. I wore designer clothes not because I needed validation, but because I could, because I'd earned it. But here's what nobody tells you about success. It doesn't erase the pain. Late at night, alone in my beautiful apartment, I'd still think about him. I'd still wonder if he ever regretted it, if he ever missed me, if he ever realized what he'd thrown away. I'd worked so hard to rebuild myself, but there was still a crack in my foundation, and his name was written all over it. Then, one day, my assistant told me I'd been invited to speak at the International Architecture Summit in New York. Keynote speaker, the biggest stage in our industry. I said yes immediately. I didn't know it then, but that decision would bring me face to face with my past. And this time, I wouldn't be the one on my knees begging. This time, karma would finally show up to collect what it was owed. The summit was held at the Javits Center, massive glass structure, thousands of attendees, the biggest names in architecture and design all in one place. I'd prepared my keynote for weeks, rehearsing every word, every pause. When I walked onto that stage in my tailored burgundy suit, heels clicking against the floor, I felt powerful. The applause was thunderous. I spoke for 40 minutes about innovation, about breaking barriers, about building legacies that matter. The standing ovation at the end nearly brought me to tears. Backstage, I was surrounded by people wanting to shake my hand, exchange business cards, take photos. I was riding high, untouchable, when I heard a voice that made my blood run cold. "Simone!" I turned around, and there he was. Lennox. But not the Lennox I remembered. This man looked older, tired. His suit was expensive, but hung a little loose, like he'd lost weight. His eyes had dark circles underneath them, and his hairline had receded slightly. He looked broken. For a moment, I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 2 years of healing, of building myself back up, and suddenly I was that girl in the elevator again, falling apart, but only for a moment. I straightened my spine, lifted my chin, and let ice coat my voice. "Lennox, what are you doing here?" He shifted uncomfortably, clutching a program with my face on the cover. "I came to hear you speak. You were incredible up there. You've always been incredible." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's interesting, coming from someone who thought I'd destroy his reputation." His face crumpled. "Simone, please, can we talk? Privately?" Every instinct screamed at me to walk away, but curiosity won. I needed to hear this. I led him to a quiet corridor, away from the crowds, crossed my arms, and waited. He took a deep breath, and I watched him struggle to find words. "I made a mistake," he finally said. "The biggest mistake of my life. I was a coward. I let my family control me, let their prejudice poison something beautiful, and I've regretted it every single day since." "Every single day?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "Interesting, because from what I hear, you got married 6 months after we broke up. To someone your mother approved of, I assume." His jaw tightened. "That marriage is over. It was a disaster from the start. She cheated on me with my business partner. They took half my company in the divorce settlement. My mother passed away last year, and before she died, she told me she was wrong about you. She said I should have fought for you. And she was right, Simone. I should have. I stared at him, waiting to feel something, sympathy, satisfaction, anything. But all I felt was emptiness. So you lost everything, and now you want me back? Is that it? He stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. I still love you. I never stopped. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you for another chance. Please, Simone, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I smiled then, cold and calculated. You know what, Lennox? Let's have dinner. Tomorrow night. There's a charity gala at the plaza. I'm hosting it. Come as my guest. His face lit up with hope, and I felt nothing but satisfaction. He thought I was softening. He thought he had a chance. Poor, stupid man. He had no idea what was coming. The next evening, I walked into that ballroom like a queen. Crystal chandeliers, designer gowns everywhere, New York's elite sipping champagne and writing checks. Lennox was there, looking nervous but hopeful in his tuxedo. I smiled at him from across the room, watched him relax. Then I took the stage to give my speech, and I made sure every word landed like a blade. I tapped the microphone, and the room fell silent. 500 pairs of eyes on me. I found Lennox in the crowd, watched him smile, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin tonight's fundraising, I want to share a story with you. A story about love, betrayal, and the price of cowardice. I saw Lennox's smile falter. A few years ago, I met a man at an event just like this one. He was charming, successful, everything I thought I wanted. He made me believe in fairy tales again. But there was a problem. I didn't fit the image he needed to maintain. I wasn't the right color, the right background, the right accessory for his perfect life. So he looked me in the eyes and told me he couldn't marry me, not because he didn't love me, but because I would destroy his reputation. The room was deathly quiet. I could see people whispering, heads turning, trying to figure out who I was talking about. Lennox had gone pale, his hands gripping the edge of his table. That rejection nearly destroyed me. I spent months questioning my worth, wondering what was wrong with me. But then I realized nothing was wrong with me. Everything was wrong with him. A man who chooses status over substance, who values his mother's approval over his own happiness, who sacrifices love for legacy. That's not a man at all. That's a coward. The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. Women were nodding, some wiping tears. I saw Lennox stand up abruptly and head for the exit, and I let him go. I'd said what I needed to say. The rest of my speech focused on the charity, on giving back, on building futures for underprivileged youth. But everyone knew what they'd really come to hear. By the time the gala ended, my story was already trending online. I was heading to my car when I heard footsteps running behind me. Simone! Simone! Wait! Lennox grabbed my arm, spinning me around. His face was red, eyes wild with rage and humiliation. How could you do that? How could you humiliate me like that in front of everyone? I yanked my arm free, and my voice came out ice cold. Humiliate you? I never said your name, Lennox. If you felt humiliated, that's your guilty conscience, not me. You destroyed me, he shouted, and people in the parking garage were starting to stare. Everyone knows my reputation is finished. I stepped closer to him, looked him dead in the eyes. Now you know how it feels. To be rejected for who you are. To have someone make you feel worthless. Welcome to my world, Lennox. How does it taste? 2 weeks later, at 11 o'clock at night, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Lennox on his knees in my hallway, tears streaming down his face, reeking of whiskey. Please, he sobbed, grabbing at my hands. Please, Simone. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was a coward and an idiot, and I destroyed the best thing in my life. Please forgive me. Please give me another chance. I have nothing left. My business is failing. My reputation is gone. Everyone has abandoned me. You're all I have. Please. I looked down at this man who'd once made me feel so small, now crumpled at my feet, broken and begging. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no pity, just indifference. I crouched down to his level and spoke softly. You taught me something valuable, Lennox. You taught me that I don't need anyone's approval to know my worth. You made me stronger by breaking me. But forgiveness? That's not something you earn by begging. That's something I give myself by letting you go. I stood up, and as I did, I heard footsteps behind me. My boyfriend, Julian, appeared in the doorway. Kind eyes, warm smile. A man who loved me loudly and proudly, without hesitation. He put his arm around my waist, and I watched Lennox's face crumble as he saw us together. The life he could have had. The woman he'd thrown away. You need to leave, Julian said firmly, but not unkindly, stepping forward to help Lennox to his feet. Lennox looked at me one last time, searching for something, mercy, maybe, or regret. But I had nothing left to give him. He stumbled backward, mumbling apologies that meant nothing, and disappeared down the hallway. I closed the door, and Julian wrapped his arms around me. You okay? He asked, kissing my forehead. I nodded, surprised to realize I actually was. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I was completely, genuinely okay. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Tasha. Girl, check the news. I grabbed my phone and saw the headlines. Former real estate mogul Lennox Hartford declares bankruptcy. The article detailed how his company had collapsed under the weight of bad investments, legal troubles, and a scandal involving his ex-wife and former business partner. Everything he'd sacrificed me for, the reputation, the legacy, the empire, it was all gone. Karma hadn't just knocked on his door, it had kicked it down and burned the whole house to the ground. I used to think love meant sacrificing yourself. I thought it meant making yourself smaller, so someone else could feel bigger. I thought it meant accepting scraps and calling it a feast. But real love, the kind that actually matters, never asks you to shrink. Real love doesn't hide you in the shadows or make you question your worth. Real love chooses you loudly, proudly, without hesitation or apology. Lennox didn't lose me because I was black. He lost me because he was weak, because he valued other people's opinions more than his own heart, because he was too much of a coward to stand up for what was right. Today, my architecture firm has offices in 4 countries. I've designed buildings that will stand long after I'm gone, structures that will house families, businesses, dreams. I wake up every morning next to a man who treats me like the queen I am, who introduced me to his family on our 3rd date, who posts our photos with captions like, "The love of my life," without a second thought. I have everything I ever wanted, and I built it myself, with my own 2 hands and the strength I found in my darkest moments. As for Lennox, I heard through the grapevine that he moved to Seattle, took a middle management job at some firm, lives in a modest apartment. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about me, about the life we could have had. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. He's a chapter in my story, not the whole book. And my story is far from over. Here's what I learned through all of this. Never let anyone make you feel like you're too much or not enough. The right person will see your value without you having to prove it. They'll fight for you, stand beside you, lift you up instead of tearing you down. And if someone tells you that loving you comes at too high a cost, believe them. Then walk away with your head held high and let karma do the rest. Because trust me, karma keeps receipts, and the bill always comes due. If this story hit you somewhere deep, do me a favor. Drop a like and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's questioning their worth because of someone else's weakness. And leave a comment telling me, have you ever had to walk away from someone who didn't see your value? I read every single one, and your stories matter. They remind us all that we're not alone in this. Thank you for listening to mine. I'll see you in the next story. Remember, you are enough, exactly as you are. Don't ever let anyone tell you different.